There is a whole lot of fun stuff going on in this episode. For one, it's obviously a PopCross Community Redraw episode. This time where I'm taking a bunch of subscriber-submitted Christmas demons, redrawing them in my art style, and working them into the story for today. Second, it's the first official Multiverse Tales episode set mostly in the demon universe that's been introduced in the Phobias as Demons episodes. Third, I added an extra drawing to this video so I could show people what the demon narrator looks like, because she's also a very important part of this story. And fourth, and maybe most importantly, we finally get to find out where the heck has old Benny Shop been for the last few months, huh? He's kind of been AWOL from the channel since he got sent back to his home dimension in the Goopy Games episode. But I think this is going to be a good triumphant return. I'm really excited about it, so let's just get into it. But important note, this episode actually starts with a prologue set 3 months ago, just after Benny got zapped to his home dimension. Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. Covered in red ooze and battered with wounds and bruises, Taran, Kayla, and Heath stumbled into an abandoned-looking mechanic's garage. They'd fought their way through a small army of agents and so-called superheroes from the Superhero Corrections and Placement Foundation in a dimension that only Kayla had ever been to before, just to find this one location. But the person they'd hoped to find there was nowhere in sight. "Mr. Sharp?" Taran called. "Mr. Sharp, are you here?" "Are you sure this is the right place, Kayla?" Heath asked, fighting back a yawn. She nodded. Charlie's memory is pretty foolproof. The mechanical buddy attached to her shoulder chimed in. "Yep, this is definitely the place, but he could be in the bunker below or something, or maybe he came and went already, because if we found this place, I bet the Foundation could have too, and they are looking for him." Kayla walked through the room for any sign of good old Benny Sharp. Quickly she noticed an envelope sitting on a side table with big bold letters that read, "To the Sharp Gang." She picked it up curiously, and that caught Taran's attention. He rushed over. "That's for us." Kayla tilted her head, confused. "What? How do you know?" Heath rolled his eyes. "Benny refers to us all as the Sharp Gang. He's really trying to get that going." "Of course he is," Kayla said as she ripped open the note and read it. "Dear Multiverse Sharpies." Then in brackets it says we can go with that name if we like it better. "I've rigged up a dimension-hoppin' mech armor, and I'm gonna do some solo explorin'. Don't worry about me, I'll be sure to come back to one of your dimensions in time for Christmas?" She tossed the note down. "That's in like 3 months. Sharp is gonna spend 3 months just hopping around the multiverse doing who knows what?" They all just stood there staring at each other for a moment, until Heath finally said, "I'm not gonna lie, I'd love to see what adventures that ridiculous man is gonna get up to." Almost 3 months later, across the multiverse in dimension D667, a poor, cold soul was lost, wandering through a Romanian woods, desperately trying to get home, but constantly being thrust in different directions by rushing wind. The man called into the snowy night for help. His voice was nearly completely drowned out by the vortex, but there was a small group that could hear him as they stalked the woods nearby, watching from a distance and waiting. 4 demon hunters crouched in the snow impatiently, while somewhere in the sky above, their newest ally was watching on. "This is torture," a tall, broad-shouldered boy with white hair snarled. "He's gonna die out there if we don't save him now." He started to stamp forward, but a black, shifting, deformed arm instinctively grabbed him. "Clayton, don't. I don't like it either, but if we run in before the Wandin Beast appears, it'll leave and we'll lose our opportunity. Plus, it won't kill him yet. It always appears to its victims before it lets them die." The words were spoken by a cool-headed but somber-sounding girl with a half-demonic face. Clayton just shot angry eyes down at her deformed arm and tore free from her grip. "I told you not to touch me with that thing, Coșmara." "Right, sorry," she said as he began pacing around the group in a circle, trying to ignore the cries for help. The other 2 hunters with them, Avery and Jax, were both staring again at Coșmara's arm, but when she turned to them, their eyes just darted away. It had been like this for months, but even still, the glances and judgmental leers always hurt. Luckily, Mara's attention was brought back to the current circumstances as wind rocked up louder and stronger. A 4-legged creature with some kind of cloth covering its head and neck wandered forward towards the tormented figure. The man finally took notice and started to scream louder in terror. He tried to flee, but the wind, now clearly spawning from the creature's tail, spun him back as it stomped closer and closer. Mara nodded to the others. All right, go now, and stay together. Teamwork is essential in beating the wand and A figure suddenly shot down from the sky, yelling, "Let's start this Christmas off with a bang, shall we? Ho ho ho, baby!" A figure clad in a red and green mech armor suit crashed into the clearing between the creature and the screaming man. He tilted his head at the demon and called out, "Hey, you demon hunting goons, wherever you are out there, you sure this is a demon? It just looks like a horse with self-esteem issues if you ask me." He pointed his arms at the demon and 2 rockets fired out toward it. The beast stayed in place, but the wind knocked the missiles off course and they exploded off in the distant woods. Whoa, I ain't seen somebody would win that dangerous coming out their backside since my lactose-intolerant Uncle Richie ate half a cake at a dinner party before realizing it was cheesecake. Benny lifted into the air again and fired red and green bursts of plasma at the creature, but the wind blew them all off course. 3 of the demon hunters sprinted towards the action, but as Clayton moved, he darted an eye back to Coșmara. "You're here for intel only, so stay out of this. That arm gets any worse, and I swear I'll cut it off." She said nothing and just looked away. Sad and ashamed, she sat in the snow as the battle raged on. Benny shot across the ground at the Wandin beast, but before he could get close, wind rocked up again and swirled him off course. He flew right towards Clayton and the other 2 hunters. They all dodged around him as Sharp crashed into a mound of snow. Clayton got as close as he could before the demon noticed, then ducked down and traced a quick rune into the snow while whipping a small pouch off his belt. He pulled out a handful of silver powder from it and slammed his hand through the rune while saying, "Argentus Sulpius!" A hazy silver aura appeared around his body, and he charged at the demon again. Wind kicked up harder and a wave of snow shot at Clayton, but it seemed to flow right around him and leave him completely unaffected. He bolted right through the fog and leapt onto the creature's back. From the gauntlets on his wrists sprung 2 daggers attached to fine silver wires. He dug them into the creature's back as it tried to buck him off. He drove the blades farther in. The demon didn't seem to weaken in strength, but the wind did start to die down, meaning the other hunters could approach. They ran at the creature, but as they did, Benny shot right past them with a fist cocked. "Hope you got a good grip on my little pony there, cause I'm gonna give it a real good Christmas cracker right now." "I'm good, Sharp," Clayton yelled. "Just make sure not to take off its..." Benny fired right past and hammered the demon so hard, it did a full 180 and slammed to the ground, with Clayton flopping off its back. But the burlap material that had covered its head came off attached to Benny's fist. Sharp slowed from the punch. "Oh yeah, that felt like a good one. Gotta be one of my top 5 punches after the time that I..." As Benny turned, he noticed the other hunters all kneeling, wide-eyed and shaking. Benny's eyes darted over to the demon, whose head was now in full sight, and Benny too suddenly became paralyzed. The creature's face was a horrifying, near indescribable mass of flesh, snow, and swirling, windy muck. Seeing it made Sharp's entire body feel as though ice were sliding through his veins. He couldn't move. The demon stood up and looked down at Clayton, who too was frozen in terror and rage as he tried to force himself to move or look away. It then turned to the man it had initially been hunting, who had been shocked by the scene but was now frozen in place like the others. The creature twirled its head back to Clayton's wired blades in its back, bit them and tore them out before stepping towards its prey. As the creature wandered forth, the man shook violently and a tear formed but froze partway down his cheek. They could all faintly hear as the words, "Please, help," slipped through his blue lips. Just before the demon got within a few feet, a streak of black and purple fired into it and tackled the creature aside, smashing it into a tree that cracked and toppled over. Mara, with glowing purple eyes, held the demon's waist in her massive warping hand. Then, like a baseball, she spun around and hurled the demon into another tree. It smashed straight through it before crashing into the snow. She darted again like dark lightning and grabbed the demon by its shifting, fleshy neck. In a calm, steady voice, she said, "I have no fear of you, demon." She kicked its body back, still holding its neck, and tore its head clean off. She hurled it into the snowbank and buried the head as fast as she could. But just as she finished, off in the distance she noticed a darting blue figure with lobster-like talons. She lost sight of it, but soon could spot 2 more. She stood up and turned just in time for Benny to run over to her, who clearly hadn't spotted the other demons. Why in the clam chowder did we keep you on the bench till just now? You're like a goopy-armed juggernaut. Also, no offense, but did we meet back at the Demon Fightin' Friends hangout place? Mara was pleased with his excitement, but caught off guard. Yeah, I'm Mara. I mean, you don't remember? I am the only one with a demon arm and, a half-demon face. Oh, yeah. What can I say, kid? I see a lot of weird stuff in my time. Last week I was in another dimension helping a guy who dresses like a half-bat, half-spider for some reason fight off a flying ice goblin. It's been a wacky 3 months for me. Clayton, with fury in his eyes, stomped past Benny and got within an inch of Mara's face. What was that? You had one order, don't engage. What did you want me to do? Just let it kill him? I don't care what you did, just anything other than kill a demon. Whoa, Snowcap, what's your problem here? Killing demons is what we're here for, ain't it? Why are you trying to keep an obvious star quarterback from shooting baskets, huh? There was a brief pause of confusion at Benny's failed attempt at a sports metaphor, but before they could jump back in, another set of stumbling blue figures in the distance caught everyone's attention. Mara's eyes were on the ground as she said, "Yeah, skullcrackers are here. We should get to the village fast." Clayton's lip quivered angrily as he darted a finger at her. "Come within 10 feet of another demon tonight, and I'll make sure you're immediately excommunicated from the Coalition." She didn't look at him or respond, she just waited till he turned and marched over to the man they'd saved. Clayton helped him up and they all headed off to their target location, for what would soon turn out to be a long Christmas Eve night. The group sped along in silence. They were about a mile from Krasnorash, a small town that their intel from the Predator Coalition of Demon Hunters had told them would be seeing far more demons that night than just the Wandenbeast. Benny tried to remember everything he'd heard in the meeting, but it was a bit fuzzy. Something about a demon that picks a secluded town every year to bring a small army of demons to on Christmas Eve to torment and destroy. Benny liked going on these sorts of weird adventures, but this was the last dimension he'd planned to come to before heading home to his friends, so he wasn't completely invested in what was going on. Still though, he now found himself very intrigued by whatever Mara's story was. She was hanging back from the group as they traveled, with her head hung low. Benny slowed his pace to walk next to her. "Alright kid, what's going on here? Why is that one going all macho aggro on you for helping out? Got something to do with that black spaghetti arm of yours? 'Cause it seems to me like something that's really good for pounding demons with." She darted her eyes forward to make sure Clayton was far enough away to not hear. "He's just scared that I'm gonna hurt people. He has good intentions." "You sure that he's not just scared of you taking all the other demon hunters' jobs? 'Cause you cut through that pretty Pegasus like it was nothing, well all he did was give it a bit of acupuncture." She smirked, but it quickly faded. "Clay and I actually used to be a couple, but after this," she said, raising her arm and gesturing at her face, "he only ever talks to me when I'm needed for intel on missions." "Seriously? I don't know what you looked like before, but I'm willing to bet this is an upgrade. You look like some kind of flippin' demon superhero or something." "Thanks, but it's not really about how I look. See, a while back, before this happened, I'd studied demons and their history enough to piece together a strong theory about where they all came from. I figured that all the higher beings of our world, both demon generals and archangels, who occasionally help us out, were originally created by one entity." "We're just glossing over the fact that archangels exist, but alright, go on." "Actually, I managed to talk to one. They don't normally converse with humans, but I got the Angel Paladin Capri to tell me about the being that he referred to as Fear herself, the original maker of demons and angels, and he told me where I could find her, but that she'd surely kill me if I did." "So naturally, you went and tried to kill her anyway, I'm guessing, right?" "Actually, I just went to her without any weapons. I had always been more interested in studying demons than killing them, and I just wanted to learn anything that could help. I took a Coalition helicopter and didn't tell anyone where I was going, but left all my research so if anything happened to me, they'd still have it all. I got to the coordinates and it was this small, withering island in the Polynesian Triangle. I scoured it for a full day and found nothing, but eventually, she just appeared. She was much smaller and younger looking than I'd anticipated, but it was definitely Fear herself. She summoned a whole array of illusions and creatures to try and scare me and feed on my fear like demons often want to. They test you to figure out what your fear is, then devour it before killing you. But nothing she did worked on me. See, I've never really feared pain or death, so demons rarely have much to threaten me with. But after trying a bunch of things to scare me, she finally let everything else fall away and just sat in the air before me, staring. I tried asking her questions. I wanted to know who she was and why she created demons in the first place, but she said nothing. I thought she was trying to, intimidate me, so I said, "You don't scare me." Then she just smiled and finally said back, "I can see that." She tapped these glowing runes on her forearm, then shot forward and grabbed my forehead and arm. Before I could react, she was just gone. I had no idea what she'd done. I would have waited for her to come back, but the island started to sink. I took the helicopter back to the Coalition base and told them all that had happened. Clayton was livid at the risk I'd taken, and soon after that we drifted apart. But things got even worse when I started to notice something about me was different. I barely needed sleep to stay rested, I could run faster, I could practically lift a car, and so I decided to test out my strength in the field and helped on some demon missions. I killed my first demon and it was a massive thrill, unlike anything I'd felt, but then a small black spot appeared on my shoulder. I ignored it at first, but soon after found that every time I killed a demon, the mark would spread more and more, and soon another appeared on my forehead and did the same. I knew it had to be whatever fear herself had done to me, but I thought it was a good thing at first. I was getting stronger and faster every time I killed a demon, even if my body was transforming more each time. But when Clayton finally got word of what was happening to me, he claimed I was putting everyone in danger. He said that clearly fear had cursed me so that once I'd killed enough demons, I'd fully transform and become a demon as well, one too powerful for the Coalition to stop. I mean, I guess I can see his logic there, but that's just his theory, right? What do you think? Her eyes darted down. It doesn't matter. He convinced everyone else that it wasn't worth the risk, so every time I killed a demon after that, they all just looked at me like I was becoming more and more of a threat to them. I might as well have been killing our friends the way they started talking about me. So I stopped hunting and went back to giving intel. I still want to help, and I need them to know I'm not a monster. Benny was about ready to jump in when the faint sound of screams cut him off. They all ran forward and burst through a clearing to see the small village of Krasnodar being swarmed with skullcracker demons. "Sharp, give us air support," Clayton demanded as he drew a rune in the snow. "Watch for any other demons. These are likely just distractions from the bigger threats. Jax, Avery, go house by house, find anyone inside that might be trapped by demons." Mara added, "Aim for the skullcrackers' eyes. Their exoskeletons are breakable, but it's much easier to wound them through their glowing blue segments." Clayton gave a slight nod, but didn't look at her. With a puff of silver dust, a luminous, translucent sword appeared in his hand, and he charged towards the closest skullcracker. He thrust his blade, but the creature ducked back and snapped a claw for his head. He swung under it and drove his sword into a glowing eye on the creature's waist, driving it straight through. Benny shot up and fired bolts of plasma at the creatures getting closest to civilians. He still had a few dozen rockets, but couldn't risk hitting people. As he fired, he glanced back at Mara, who was just perched by a tree, watching as the rest fought. He bet she could end this fight in a matter of minutes. He considered going to say something when he noticed a black and red figure darting onto a rooftop from the woods. It looked like a thin, demon-skinned Santa. "Whoa, incoming guys. Either old Saint Nick made some kind of weird weight loss deal with the devil, or we got a new demon coming in." He soared down to the figure and grabbed it by the tail. Then he shot back up into the air with the creature in tow, then hurled it above him. He readied up a rocket and fired just as Mara yelled, "Wait, Benny, don't!" Too late. The rocket was flying, but in a streak of purple, Mara fired through the air and caught the rocket in her demon arm. It exploded around her and she fell toward the earth. Benny flew towards her, but she twisted in the air, looking at him and said, "I'm okay." She landed in the snow near a skullcracker. Benny hoped she'd just obliterate it, but she backed away as the demon approached her. Benny was about to fire on it for her when the skinny Santa demon he'd just attacked landed down beside Mara and jabbed his Christmas light tipped tail straight through it. He swung a burlap sack from his back and whacked the demon backwards off his tail before it erupted into ash. Mara nodded at the figure. "Thanks, Ralph. It's good to see you." The demon grinned widely and fired off into the crowd of skullcrackers. Alright, hold up a flippin' second here. Ralph? Who or what is Ralph? He's one of the rare good demons. Every year he helps us try to defeat Pogonis, the demon who leads the Christmas Eve raids. Okay, so you're telling me there are good demons too. So why in the flippin' Fenway Frank are the Coalition goons so convinced you'd become a bad demon, huh? You should be mowing through these stupid things so we can all get home in time for Christmas. She hesitated and looked away. It's not worth the risk, Benny. And I can't stand how he looks at me when I try to help. Benny's eyes darted across the village to Clayton as he sliced a skullcracker in half and told a young boy to run. Alright, I had just about enough of this. Looks like it's time for old Benny Shop to save Christmas. Benny fired across the village to Clayton. Hey big guy, a real gnarly looking demon is headed towards us from about a mile straight that way. Looks real tough, but Mara says with your silver sword thing it could be donezo in a few swipes. Clayton nodded. On it. Just make sure she doesn't kill anything. Clayton sprinted off for the woods. I absolutely promise you nothing, you stupid goon. Jax and Avery had both gone into houses and were facing other demons, so all judgmental eyes were gone. Benny tapped a button on the side of his helmet and his mech armor came off. He wandered forward, saying, Oh no, poor old Benny is totally helpless. Sure hope somebody saves me before a demon gets me. 3 skullcrackers hobbled towards him. Mara yelled, Benny, what are you doing? Ralph, help! But Ralph was off facing other threats. The demons got close. Oh, woe is me, this looks bad. Sure wish we had some kind of crazy demon-slaying wrecking ball that could jingle all the way down here and come help me out. Mara suddenly fired through the demons, and before Benny could tell what was happening, the 3 creatures were all shredded to pieces. Mara had a satisfied grin, but as an inch of black crept down her shoulder, the look faded. Benny, what are you doing? I can't help. Yes, you can, kid, because old Benny Shops figured out what's going on here. You said demons are always trying to scare people, right? And feed on their fear or whatever? Well, you might not be afraid of dying or nothing, but it's pretty obvious to me that you got a real big fear being judged by folks, am I right? Her eyes opened wide for a moment, then darted away again. I don't... But that's not really a fear, it's just... Of course it's a fear, kid, and I bet that fear herself, lady, figured out you got that fear and gave you a curse that preyed on it. You was doing good things with it until Clayboy convinced you might end up hurting people. It could be a real gift if you just get over the fact that other people might be scared of you going all evil demon on them. The fear lady's just trying to scare you by making sure other people are judging you. You gonna give in to that fear or not? Because whether or not those goons think you're helping, you can save a lot of lives by just not worrying about what they think he is. She looked around at the terrified, fleeing civilians. Avery ran out of a house and the wall behind her exploded open as a giant flying Christmas ornament flew out after her, gnashing its teeth. Jax was hurled through a window and crashed into the snow. It was chaos, and Mara didn't know what to do. Finally, Benny said, Kid, forget everything else for a minute here. What do you think is the right thing for you to do? There was a beat where everything seemed to pause. Mara took a slow inhale through her nose. Then, her eyes shone purple. The tendrils on her arm flexed, and in a blur, she was finally on the move. Mara's heart thudded with glee as she fired through 7 skullcrackers in a matter of seconds, leaving all of them in clouds of ash. She leapt up at the ornament demon that was after Avery and grabbed its wing. She whipped her body around and slammed it into the ground. Snow exploded into the air around them as Benny rushed back into his armor and bolted over to Jax. Jax looked at Mara in terror, but Benny picked him up. Focus up, kid, she's on our side, but I'm guessing that thing ain't. Through the window leapt a Christmas present the size of a car with a leering yellow eye. It had red noodly arms, one of which thrust towards Benny. He tried to fly back, but the thing grabbed him and pulled him towards its massive toothed maw. Before Benny could react, Ralph shot in and with his massive clawed fingers sliced the creature's arm off. Benny flew free and aimed his arm into its mouth, letting loose 3 rockets. They all exploded and the creature shrieked in pain. Benny landed down next to Jax and Ralph. "Thanks for the save, Skinny Santa." He glanced down at the bag Ralph was using as a weapon. "Hey, you got any presents in there for good old Benny Sharp?" Ralph reached in, grabbed something out, and handed Benny a lump of coal. Come on, I ain't been that naughty, have I?" The present demon suddenly kicked up again and thrust its remaining arm at them. Before it could reach, the ornament demon slammed against its side, and Mara in a streak of purple shot at them both. The tendrils on her arm latched onto the present demon, and she tore it into 4 separate pieces. She then stomped a foot into the lower jaw of the spherical demon, grabbed its upper jaw, and tore upwards, ripping it in half as it erupted into ash. She turned to Benny, and through the black cloud, he could see a massive grin on her face. Every demon in sight was eviscerated and blowing in the breeze. She'd been even better than he could possibly imagine. But wind started to spiral through the town, and a cloud appeared above, emitting an eerie chime of jingle bells. Through the haze came a winged figure. It appeared like Santa Claus, but with a red, dead-eyed expression and a beard made of lashing white tentacles. "I'ma go out on a limb and guess that's the ringleader of this whole shtick, but honestly, I don't think we're even gonna need to help," he said, nudging Ralph. "Not when we have..." "Coșmara!" yelled Clayton, enraged. Mara's whole body seemed to shrink in on itself, hearing his voice. She tried to hide her shoulder, which was clearly much more covered in demon markings now. He stomped towards her, and Benny stepped between. "Alright, bud, back off. She's doing more to help than you." Clayton swung his blade at Benny, and it sliced into his shoulder, just coming short of touching his skin through his armor. "Holy heck, I knew you were a bit nutty, but you're like next level crazy, huh?" Clayton tore the blade free and reeled back again. "She was cursed by the most powerful demon in existence. I'm not letting her become a weapon for fear herself, and if I have to kill you and her to stop it, then so be it." Clayton swung again, but Benny ducked under it. Mara wanted to help, but Pogonis' tentacles fired down and grabbed 5 civilians, pulling them into the air. Mara and Ralph leapt through the air, slicing tentacles and grabbing the citizens, but more and more kept being taken. Soon, even Jax was snatched off the ground. Mara fired over and cut him free and leapt him to the ground, holding him in her demon arm. She landed, and before she could even let go, he pushed himself back from her. He didn't thank her or anything, he just stared at her arm in disgust. Her heart sank again, but she turned back to the fight all the same, to see Ralph being wrapped up in 4 tentacles and lured towards Pogonis' mouth. Across the village, Benny was still dodging sword blows. "Clayton, man, I knew you got issues, but I didn't peg you for a murderer. You seriously think Mara helping out could do more bad than good?" Benny threw a punch at Clayton's head, but with his silver shield still active, the blow did nothing, as Clay stabbed his sword through the metal on Benny's thigh, again just missing flesh. "Yes, I know it can! Just look at that!" he said, pointing back to Pogonis. The demon's tentacles lashed out farther and started tearing roofs off houses and hurling them at Mara. Civilians barely ran out of the way in time to avoid being crushed by debris. "You see how powerful that thing is? It's nothing compared to some of the demons we've seen before, and Mara is on track to surpass all their power. If there's even the slightest chance her curse could make her turn evil, it's not worth risking. I've seen 21 personal friends tortured and killed by demons, on top of countless civilians. I'm not gonna watch another of my friends turn into the very thing she's supposed to protect people from." He thrust a blade again, but Benny dropped to the ground and grabbed Clayton's leg. He fired into the air and hurled Clayton into a tree. "Sorry about the folks you lost, but don't call her your friend, kid. You don't deserve it the way you treat her." Mara slashed through the tentacles holding Ralph, then grabbed him and hurled him up above Pogonis. The demon's eyes followed up, and Ralph reeled back his bag for a swing as his ascent slowed. But just as he was about to drop towards the demon, Ralph winked. Before it could look down, Mara blasted up to Pogonis and thrust her fist right into its mouth. It chomped down, and Mara was shocked that she could actually feel searing hot pain through her demon arm, but she kept it in. Tentacles smashed against her like baseball bats, but instead of retreating, she yelled and thrust her arm even farther in, driving her fist right through the demon's back. Its eyes flashed and flickered. She then ripped her arm back, tearing its wings through its body as it exploded into ash. She dropped to the ground and landed in the midst of a tattered and wounded, but now safe, village. The civilians were all too scared to cheer, and some of them were even giving Mara and Ralph nervous, dirty looks. Jax and Avery weren't acknowledging them at all. Mara didn't know how to feel as more of the demon mark crept down her arm. But a cheerful voice finally came to her. "Kid, that was some of the best monster fighting I ever seen." Benny fired over and gave her a massive mechanical hug. "And trust me, that's saying something coming from me. One of my buds literally punches kaijus for a living." A yellow tear formed in her eye. Thanks, Benny." As she spoke, Clayton limped towards them, but this time, he didn't attack. He shot an angry look at Mara, but then sneered at Benny. "Mark my words, Sharp. You let her go down this path, it ends with you pointing all your fancy little weapons right at her head, and you'll have no one to blame but yourself." Jax and Avery joined up with Clayton, and they all marched off into the woods. "Wow," Benny said. "I'll give it to the kid. He's got a real menacing voice when he wants to. He's kind of the worst, but I don't blame you for dating him. Angry guys are kind of my thing too, but that's why I don't really date much. Don't trust my own taste, you know? Plus, I prefer having friends over dating." "Yeah, well, I don't know if I even have any friends waiting for me anymore. I don't think I'll have anyone welcoming me back to the Coalition now." A flicker of doubt passed through Benny, but Mara continued. "But you know what? I think you were right. I have been so scared of what people think of me that I stopped doing all I could to help. Maybe fear herself really is testing me, and as long as I don't give in to that fear, I really can help so many more people with this power." She was finally smiling again, this time a determined and hopeful grin. Benny clapped his hands together. "That's what I like to hear. And you know what? You don't need those goons back at the Demon Friends hangout. I got a whole bunch of friends myself that are gonna love you just the way you are." Really? "Oh yeah. In fact, let's go have a nice big Christmas breakfast with them now, huh? I can regale them with the story of how I saved Christmas by convincing you to kill evil Santa Claus." Mara chuckled excitedly, swirling with emotions over the day's event. She was truly happy for the first time in months. But just before she and Benny left, something shook through her whole body, under her skin. It wasn't quite a voice, but she could feel what it said to her all the same. A demonic essence echoed through her being. "Kill." And there we have it, a very fitting background for the month of December. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted. There were so many cool demons sent in, and of course specific thank you to the people who were selected. Lass House, Henry Williams, Jack Smith, Rylan Bees, Empty Vessel, and Joshua Granger. It was really cool working with your demons, and I hope I did them all justice. And of course, I hope everybody likes the design and story for our new demon narrator, Mara, because I may or may not have quite an arc planned out for her, which continues in the next Multiverse Tales episode and Community Redraw episode. I'm gonna sort of explain what the prompt is for the next one, but linked in the pinned comment and the description is much more thorough instructions. This one is much more specific than usual. Because in the next Multiverse Tales episode, Eloise Ludum, the Game Master, who ran the Apocalypse Dome and Goopy games, is going to be kidnapping 6 of our favorite Multiverse Tales heroes. And she's commissioned all you lovely overseers out there to design a character or creature specifically made to kill one of those 6 heroes. Don't make your hero killers too overpowered. This should still be a good fight. It should be kind of like, you know, Blastoise fighting Charizard, not like Godzilla fighting a gopher. There should still be a chance that the heroes could win, you know? Because realistically, there's not a huge chance I'm killing off a Multiverse Tales character. Or is there? We'll see. Again, more thorough description in the Google Docs document. Please go through it carefully if you're going to be submitting this month. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending the video on some kind of motivational or uplifting note. And for this one, I'm actually, weirdly enough, going to get changed into a bathing suit and step out to the dock. Consciously choosing to do things on occasion that make you uncomfortable on purpose is a great way so that when uncomfortable situations are brought to you by life, you're more resilient and more emotionally equipped to handle them. There's a lot of different things you can choose to do now and then to make yourself more uncomfortable. You can cut out coffee or your other favorite drink for a week. You can commit to not hitting the snooze button or commit to waking up 15 minutes earlier. Personally, I like doing stuff like this. But if there was any ice on the water, I'd make sure someone else was around to help me out. And kids, only go swimming with a parent or supervisor. And after that day, PopCross Studios was never seen again. Some people say he's still swimming to this day. Others say he made it to the Atlantic Ocean. Some even think he was attacked by a giant oh, wait, no. Okay, it looks like he's coming back. I guess there will be an episode on Monday. See you all there!